Welcome, everyone, to Hands On Politics. As you can see, Ken and I are here in the frames, and we're looking at a new software program to let you see our smiling faces when we're talking. Ken, it's nice to see you. A lot different than our audio format, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit scary. I think I'm going to have to get my hair colored, get a tan, and maybe use a little Botox here. But yeah, new format, but it should be fun. And
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and our listeners may or may not know, back in the day, we used to do Blog Talk Radio where we did this format, and we had the opportunity to interview the late, great Walter Williams.
Yes.
We had Ira Stoll of, I forget what his independent news organization was, but he also wrote a book on Samuel Adams. We interviewed him on that. And then Doug Collins, who was a congressman at the time, who's now the VA
Secretary.
So we had some good interviews back in the day. So maybe we'll do it again, since we'll see if this format works for us, and we'll give it a try. So this is episode 75 for us, Ken.
Yeah.
Which is, we're getting up there with the 2.0. So we have a lot to talk about. We just had Trump yesterday doing his 9th cabinet meeting, and he just equaled Biden's cabinet meetings for his entire 4 terms. Did you watch?
I did watch some of it. But it's long, but it is interesting that Biden never had very few cabinet meetings. I think he fell asleep during the ones that he did have. But it reminded me of many meetings that I was in at UPS, where you would literally have the person who's responsible for finance, person responsible for human resources and sales and operations. And I like the format because what it says is you're going to have to get in front of not only me, not only the leader of the organization, but you're going to have to get in front of the American people and say, what are you doing? What are you doing to make America great again? And, and that's what I got from it. Each of the cabinet secretaries had to talk about what they're doing, and a lot of great stuff happening. So, so I like the format. I like the fact that people have to talk about what they're doing. And, everything that I heard was good stuff.
Yeah. And, it would be like having a staff meeting in front of your customers and shareholders, right? So you have to answer to the people, the stakeholders in your organization, which is the American people. And I know I saw, I think it was CNN or MS, whatever it is now. They were showing bits and pieces. They'd have it on in the background, and then they'd have commentators saying, oh, it's all a bunch of lies, not allowing their viewers to make that decision. They were going to filter through it, which is just so disappointing. People who watch the alphabet, ABC, NBC, CBS, they're not getting the news. I mean, I'm not going to go off subject here right now, but the whole Minnesota welfare scandal, $1 billion, Tim Walz, wasn't even covered yesterday by any of the majors, the CBS, NBC, or CBS. So if you're watching them, you're not getting informed. And this is not a right-wing conspiracy. This is happening at the local level in Minnesota, and it has been it boiled up to the surface because it's such a big scandal, and it involves federal dollars, which are our dollars, and potentially going to a terrorist organization in Somalia.
Yeah, it's, just to talk a little bit about how people who do not get their news from various news sources, you really have to go to conservative sites, liberal sites, so-called moderate sites to really get the big picture. And, Rich, when I'm preparing for Hands on Politics, that's what I do. I'm not just going to sites that I agree with. I want to hear what the other side says so that I'm fully informed. But you're right, $1 billion or so of what is it, different types of welfare programs that these Somalians are using to enrich themselves and also send it over to warlords or whoever, terrorists over in Somalia. It's really horrible. But I think we mentioned it last week a little bit. Somalia is known, U.S. State Department, not only during the Trump administration, but during the Biden administration, during the Obama administration, for a long time has been known as a country that has a tremendous amount of corruption. And so, should we be surprised when we bring over, cities or towns from Somalia and plop them down in the middle of America in Minnesota? Should we be surprised that they're doing exactly what they were doing, that they're doing here, what they were doing over in Somalia? I don't think so. It's no surprise to me.
Absolutely. And we can talk more about that, Ken. But one of the things we wanted to get to right off the top was a lot happening down in the Caribbean, and especially Venezuela. And I think we need to talk about the overall policy of Venezuela. A lot of people are just saying, we're going after Maduro, and it's a drug policy, keeping drugs out of America. We're blowing up the boats and things like that. But Ken, I think it's a bigger policy. I think it's more of a Monroe Doctrine type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell our audience about the the strategy of the Trump administration here, because a lot of people don't realize how much outside influence there is in the Caribbean.
Yeah, let me say that when I went to college, one of the most interesting classes I ever took was on East Asian policy. And we learned a lot about China, a lot about Japan. I've also listened to lectures from professors in some prestigious institutions. And what people maybe don't understand about China is that China was the most powerful country on earth for a long time, for a millennium at least. When Rome was big, China was bigger. When Greece was big, China was bigger. China has always been an advanced society, state, powerful militarily, economically. And I think a lot of people, think of China, or at least did think of China as maybe being kind of like a second world country, a third world country. No, they have always been a very powerful country. And it was only during, between 1850 and 1950 that they took a back seat to a lot of the European countries. And they consider that the, what is it? Not the decade, but what's 100 years? The, what do you call 100?
Century?
A century. Yeah, a century of humiliation.
Yeah.
And so the China, they want to get back to where they were before.
Yeah.
Because they believe they should be number one, and which is fine, but I want the United States to be number one. And so what has China been doing over the last 10, 20, 30 years? They've been expanding all over the world. They're in Panama. They were very influential in Panama. They're now very influential in the Caribbean, in South America. You go up to the Arctic Circle. They want to use that for ships and things, but with the less ice up there, now they're kind of thinking about using that. And it's all, a lot of it is for economic reasons, but those economic reasons can very quickly and easily become military reasons.
Yep.
And the thing is, United States, we've been ignoring it for a long time. Why have we been ignoring it? Because China gives a tremendous amount of money to a lot of people. They give money to schools, to universities, they give money to media organizations, they give money to sports organizations. So they're very influential, and they don't give this money to these organizations just because, they're friendly. They want positive press. And so they're doing a lot of things that are positioning themselves to be the most powerful country in the world. Now Trump comes in and he realizes they're doing this. And so he's looking at them in Panama and said, okay, that is a problem, like using the Monroe Doctrine like you're talking about. He's like, why is China down there? And this is a violation of the Panama Treaty between Panama and the U.S. And he's basically pushing them out a little bit. But also, China is in places like Venezuela and Colombia and, Africa and places like that. And I think what's happening with Maduro and Venezuela, I think Trump, it's not about the oil. It's about it's about the drugs. It is a little bit about the oil, but the bigger issue is he sees that China is getting a foothold in there, and that threatens our geopolitical standing in the world. And so I think he's going in there and saying, Maduro, you get out, we're going to give you the boot for drugs, but also because you're cozying up to China. And I just don't think people are talking about that like they should, not taking it as seriously as they should. But this is a major issue. I think much more significant than anything with Russia or any other country. China they're competing with us. They are an adversary for global dominance. And I want the United States to be the most dominant country in the world.
Yeah. It only makes sense when you look at the amount of military that has been sent to the Caribbean. It's what Trump is doing is sending a signal, not to Maduro, because Maduro doesn't have any chance of keeping, fighting against. I'm getting some feedback. Ken. Are you fine? Okay. So, I it, the amount of military that's down there is simply not just for drugs and Maduro. I think it's sending a message to China to say we are now taking back over our area, and of course the drugs are seriously important, and the fact that Maduro negated the election results and is now in power, and the government that was elected is standing in the wings right now. The woman that was running that movement, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's a good excuse to get down there. And I think it's important that we finally have stepped up in the war on drugs. But to your point, it's a bigger issue, and we have to, keep our eyes on it. And in the military, we only see so much of what the true picture is. And
Yeah.
I think to your point, Ken, Trump knows that, and he's showing his power in the region. I'm hoping that Maduro steps down and gets out of the way because he knows his days are numbered. The whole does tie into the narco terrorism that's going on, the boats that we're sinking, and the drug folks that we're going after. It all ties in together. But, that's typical Trump. When he's looking at America first, there's quite often tentacles that surround that, issue. And he doesn't go after just one thing. He goes into the root cause. He's always been a root cause guy. And some of the root causes are China's in there feeding these fentanyl factories with the materials they need. So it's all a bigger picture. And of course, the media, with its lack of understanding and knowledge, and most of these kids, there's a lot of quote unquote journalists that don't know their history. They look at it from the easiest angle. And what's the easiest angle in the media? Trump going after fishing boats and
Yep.
like it's all about anti-Trump stuff. They don't even do their homework. So that's why you need to come to Hands-On Politics to get your history lessons and
That's
your
right.
understanding of politics, right?
Well, and let me give you a little bit more history, Rich, and I find this very interesting. You've heard about the Opium Wars, like Opium Wars in the 1800s between basically Great Britain and China, where Great Britain was importing a lot of opium from India, and it was their way to get into the Chinese market. And China was like, you guys got to get out of here. You're ruining, our people are getting addicted and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Well, China has a long memory. Fentanyl. What's happening? Fentanyl is coming from China. It's getting imported into places like Colombia, Venezuela, and then ultimately it comes to the United States, which is where the money is, where people are buying this type of stuff. And so China's like, you guys did that during the 1800s, so it's payback time. You also have, intellectual. China is a problem because they steal our intellectual property. Well, the Chinese government, they feel justified in doing this because a lot of people don't know this, but throughout history, China was the number one or maybe even the only producer of silk. And silk is made, with silkworms, and there's mulberry bushes, and there's a process. Well, the West, back in the 1400s, 1500s, they stole that intellectual property from China. And so it might sound kind of silly, but in their minds, it's like, hey, you did it to us,
Yep.
and we're doing it to you, and they justify it that way, and they're going to continue to do that. So, so there's a lot of history between China and the West, and China, every action that they're taking is to try to get back to the position they were, 100 years ago, because they were the number one country in the world for a long time, and they want to get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ken, they, as part of this policy going after Maduro and the drug traffickers and China in the region, the Democrats are again going after Hegseth. They hate Hegseth. That's their number one target. They are trying so hard to break the bond between Trump and Hegseth, because now they're saying that there was illegal activity with the blowing up of, there was a double tap or whatever they called it, military jargon. And I love listening to, there's a General Jack Keane, he's a strategic analyst. He runs a war college, very, very smart. And he was like, this 25% of military missions have multiple attacks on the same targets because of, if the first one doesn't complete the job, the second one will. And when the mission is getting a boat that is coming across with drugs and it has narco terrorists on it, driving that boat, if the target is not annihilated on the first attack, you hit it again. Now, the Democrats are trying to seize on something where they're saying that there was survivors of an attack. These narco terrorists were hanging onto the side of the boat. Nobody's seen any of that footage. They're just kind of saying that. And the admiral made the decision to hit it again. And now they're trying to make a big to-do. they're trying to make a big to do, but I don't see the American people like latching on to that because it's like it's a military action. These are bad people, bad drugs, and we're annihilating them. And if it was okay to hit them on the first one, it's okay to hit them on the second one. We're not talking about civilians. We're talking about narco terrorists that are trafficking drugs into our country, and who knows what else is on the boats. And they're trying to drive this wedge. They keep going after Hegseth, and I'm really tired of it. He's a warrior, he's a patriot, and they for some reason just hate him. And I'm sick and tired of it. And to tell you the truth, I have a hard time finding any empathy for people who are trying to kill Americans and who have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans with the drugs they're bringing into this country.
Yeah. And you notice Democrats are always on the wrong side of every issue. When it comes to illegal immigration, they support the illegal immigrants. When it comes to illegal immigrants being deported, they support the person who's being deported. They defend the people who, you have the rapists and the killers. What side are the Democrats on?
Yeah.
They're always on the, you have ICE and you have, all these attacks on ICE. Democrats support that all the time. They're on the wrong side. And I think it really does go back to what you're talking about. And that is that they're just always going to criticize Trump. Because if you remember, Obama, during his 8 years, he loved to use drone strikes. And during his time in office, they estimate that he killed about 4,000 people with his drone strikes. And civilian deaths, how many of those were? It's disputed, but anywhere from 400 to 800. Did you ever hear any Democrats criticizing Biden for killing these people overseas? And just think about that. These are people, he was calling drone strikes over in, Afghanistan and, Iraq and places like that. And nobody criticized him for it. But the Democrats are criticizing Trump and Hegseth for ordering or for killing these people who are bringing drugs that will directly kill Americans. You can't make this stuff up. They are just the Democrats. Who are you defending? They're always defending the wrong group of people. Always.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, the good news is, Ken, we had a special election yesterday in Tennessee for Congressional District 7 there in Tennessee. And Trump won the district by 22 points.
Yeah.
And so the Van Epp, who was the Republican, he won it by just about 10 points. And there's a lot of speculation on this woman was, and the reason I'm transitioning here is, Ken, is because what you're saying, they're always on the wrong side of the issue. This woman that was his opponent or was vying for this seat, a state assembly person, and her
Afton Bain, maybe is her name. I don't know how to pronounce it.
What was their first name? I'd never seen a name like
Afton, Aftyn.
Yeah, Afton.
Bain.
Never heard of it, but who knows? She was your AOC. She was your squad type. She's anti-ICE. She actually hates country music, Nashville, the rolling bars, the bachelorettes, all that stuff. She hates people.
Yeah,
but
America. She hates America.
She's on the wrong side of those issues. That's why it was a good transition into this special election. But the point being, the Democrats are thinking they had some gain here because Trump won that district by 22 points. But let's kind of pull back. What was the turnout difference? There was a massive turnout difference because it's a special election, and I don't know the exact number, but I think there's 700,000 voters in Tennessee overall, or in the district. And it was, the percentage was probably 30% of people voted. And I'm sure in the general election, that number was much higher. But you also have to remember the presidential election was getting, a year of media coverage. Trump Trump is a great campaigner. He got the votes out, and of course, he won big in a state like in a district like District 7 in Nashville or whatever, Tennessee. But Kamala Harris, she was one of the worst candidates ever. So people were making choices. Democrats were making choices at that point of, is Trump better or Kamala? I think we have an apples to almost oranges here. I think 10 points is a good differentiator in an off year special election. I think the Democrats are much more motivated in the sense of they hate Trump so much, and Trump voters are going to work. They're doing their thing. It's a special election right after Thanksgiving. So I think 10 points was very comfortable. I don't think it sends any message going forward. I do believe, as we've stated many times in our podcast, that the economy is going to be a huge driver. And things are starting to turn, but the grocery prices are still too high. Gas is coming way down. Good thing. Stock market's strong. We'll start to see the wage growth, lower taxes. When people do their taxes, they'll have more money. There's a lot of time for the economy to come back. And that's the only issue right now that I'm worried about, is the economy, because the candidates like this one, they are not going to play across the country. The Mamdani factor is not going to play in congressional districts all across this country, except for the extremely blue states. And even there, I'm wondering, with high turnout, whether or not they can hold it. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Yeah, I agree. 10 points, 9 or 10 points, that's a good win. But I don't think it's a bad thing for Republicans to be concerned, because even if it's not a bellwether of what's going to happen in the future, I want people to be concerned. I want people who love America to be concerned that maybe we're going to have trouble during the midterms, because I want them to be excited about coming out. So I'm not. And by the way, the Democrats are going to use anything to say, "Oh, look at the big change. They won by 20, and now it's only down to 10." And they're grasping for straws, right? Because they are losing everything. Trump is moving policies forward, and they're just seeing everything that they believe in just basically slipping through their hands. So, they're gonna cling on to anything that they can. So I'm not worried, but I think it's maybe a good thing that it appears to be a little bit closer than maybe it should have been, because I want our side to get motivated. So I want that. And I also think it is a good reminder to Trump. Not that I don't think he's doing everything he can to turn the economy around and to, do everything he should be doing to, fix America. But I think, Trump needs to continue to focus on the economy. So I think it's maybe just a little bit of a, not so much a wake-up call. That's too strong of a word, but just don't get too complacent with where we are right now.
It's a reminder.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this as well, Ken. President Trump needs to campaign in areas where we're either concerned or we have opportunities. And he needs to get out on the campaign trail and treat the midterms as if it was a national election. It is, but it's whatever number of districts, 435 districts, it is 435 campaigns. So he's got to get out there and try to nationalize it, remind people what they're voting for, and how the Democrats will focus completely on things that make no sense to Americans, like impeachment and all that other crap going after them. They have no policy. And yesterday, Trump announced the investment accounts for American kids, right? And Dell, the CEO of Dell, whatever, it was one of the Dell.
Michael Dell, yeah.
Michael Dell and his wife have pledged whatever the number of billions of dollars to basically seed those accounts. But I think those types of things are really important to educate people on financial success, that time is your friend, that having an account that you can utilize down the road by slowly putting money into it, watching that interest grow, and when the kids turn 21, 18, whatever the number is, as long as the government has no access to those accounts, except for the fact that these kids at 18 now get that account fully. The government should not be able to do what they did to Social Security by stealing it from the American worker, is basically what they did. There's no lockbox. But if these accounts are truly tied to individuals and they can add to them and they're protected like an IRA, 401k type thing, but it's not 401k, but they can put money in there. Parents can put money in there. Grandparents can put money in there for their kids, for graduation, for like a 529 education fund. Those are the kind of things that that's like a policy that people can get behind, right? What are the Democrats offering? Trump is doing things that make sense. Closing the border, getting rid of our criminals, stopping all this immigration from third world countries that hate America.
Mm-hmm.
Those things. He's got gas prices, drill baby, drill, those kind of things. He's got tariffs bringing manufacturing back. Jobs are being created in the private sector again. He needs to go out and talk about that, and anybody out there, as Van Epp said in this special election, you don't run away from Trump, you run with him. Because if you're running with him, you're running with common sense policies, and stop worrying about the media saying that you're a Trump whatever. The Trump haters are coming out no matter what. You got to get the people in the middle out there coming out for you because of policy. And that's what a lot of these rhino Republicans don't understand, is Trump is not kryptonite. Trump is a positive for your campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care where you are, because the policies are good no matter where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points. And you really wonder, what are Democrats running on? Like you said, they're not running on anything. They are running against Trump. I mean, if they weren't criticizing Trump, they would have absolutely nothing to say. But I do think, like, one of my favorite political periods was Newt Gingrich with the contract with America.
That was awesome.
And, he had a list of things that he wanted to do, or he promised to have votes on them, and they got some of them passed. But it was a promise to Americans to say, if you vote Republicans in, this is what we're going to do. And I think Trump needs to do something like that again. We talked about it. Trump has done a lot of good things, closing down the borders. He's done a lot of things that are going to take effect, I hope, before the elections. But he needs to get some more of those 80-20 issues and say, if you vote for Republicans, this is what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
Because that's what gets people excited. They don't want to hear what you're going to do. They don't want to hear criticisms of the other team. They want to hear what you're going to do for them. And I think if Trump can, nobody's a better campaigner than Trump. Nobody gets the base energized like Trump. And so he needs to do that. It's going to be pretty soon, right? I mean, it's still several months away until you really have to roll it out big time. But he needs to the Republicans need to have that strategy to get people excited. Because if you don't, then the only thing you're going to hear about is how bad Trump is, and you're not going to motivate your base, and maybe you'll have some troubles in the midterms.
Yeah, and Trump sucks up the oxygen of the media. So to your point, if Trump isn't out there sucking up that oxygen and sending out the right message, the media is going to have time to focus on all the bad stuff because, with Trump out there, they have to cover him. And Trump, whether they, criticize or whatever, the people will see Trump campaigning on social media. They'll go around the ABC, NBC, CBSs that don't cover any of this stuff. And so he will bring the oxygen to the right issues. And you can't leave the media to themselves because the media is always going to be anti-Trump. That's just a fact of life. So you have to offset it, and Trump is the best to do it because, to your point, he is the motivator of the base, and the base has to get out there. And then the rest of the 80-20 issue does, people scratch their heads and go, men and girls sports. Come on, guys, that's silly.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. People look at and go, you're crazy, socialism and, defund the police and all that stuff. Come on, if you've got other issues for them to focus on, they are just going to poo-poo those issues away and not even listen to them. So they'll have no effect whatsoever. Ken,
Yeah.
let's do one more issue on our first video podcast, and let's talk about Minneapolis, the Somalian community, the $1 billion scandal that's been going on now. We find out since Harris chose Walz for her VP. Democrats in Minneapolis were telling Kamala Harris, do not pick Tim Walz. He's incompetent. He's managing Minneapolis and Minnesota in a really poor way. There's all this stuff going on, including this scandal of welfare programs, a number of welfare programs that are responsible for nearly $1 billion of tax fraud. Already 55 people have been convicted and a whole bunch more are going there. The New York Times is on this now. The Washington Post was trying to hide something, and the New York Times says, oh no, this is a big, big deal. Have you been following this, Ken?
Yeah, I've been following it, a little bit. To me, it's not a real complicated issue. Going back to when Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz, I was like, and this guy spoke, I'm like, this guy is an idiot. Like a low IQ. And what's funny is, they say the president needs to pick somebody who has he has a lower IQ than him or her, because you don't want to look bad. And so you had Barack Obama pick Joe Biden. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then Joe Biden picks Kamala Harris. It's like, my gosh, if she has to pick somebody who has a lower IQ than her, the person's not going to be able to get dressed in the morning. But she did it. She picked Tim Walz, and the guy is a complete idiot. I'm sorry, he's yeah, and I guess they picked him because they wanted Kamala needed help with the white white voters, white male voters. And I'm sorry, I don't vote for guys who walk out on the stage doing that.
Mickey
But
Mouse.
not only that, he's just, yeah, jazz hands. He does
Yeah.
jazz. What the heck is that? But he's just a totally incompetent person. But I think maybe a bigger issue here is liberalism and just dealing with any minorities. They are racist. And I can guarantee you one of the reasons why Tim Walz and other liberals didn't question Somalians about all this corruption is because, oh, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to question because that would appear to be racist and
Targeting
the
those black people.
yeah, but the fact of the matter is that is racist. If you are going to treat minorities differently than you're going to treat, white people, that especially if you're going to treat them in a condescending way, which is what Democrats always do with minorities, that in and of itself is racist. And I would argue to my death that Democrats are the most racist people in the country. I want to treat everybody equally. And if I see white, like Hunter Biden, he's a white guy, corrupt as they come,
Yep.
but also these Somalians I don't know any of them personally, but when you are using, government money to enrich yourself or enrich terrorist organizations back home, I'm going to hold you accountable. I don't care what color you are.
Yep. Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, Ken.
There's a novel idea,
Yeah.
huh?
And it's true. It's true that Democrats, just their inability to face things like, in the inner cities, black families are broken.
Mm-hmm.
That's not racist. That's stating a fact. And the black community will tell you that their families have been broken due to the welfare system, the way it's designed, that if there's a father in the house, they don't get as much money. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a corruption of the black family forever. But Democrats can't say that because they think you're targeting black families. No, you're targeting an issue of broken families due to the welfare system. And there are white families that have
Yeah.
the issue, but the majority has been seen in the black community. And until you come to terms with the root cause of the issue, if you can't get by the color of the skin, that's racist in itself. And it's the bigotry of low expectations, right? That this community doesn't want to help itself. It doesn't want to fix itself. Black people can't get an ID, so you can't have voter ID. That's what the Democrats say all the time. And it's like, do you not hear yourself how
Mm-hmm.
racist that is? To say that black people can't do that? I know so many black people that they have homes, they have families, they have good jobs. I've worked for black people as my
Mm-hmm.
supervisor, and you and UPS probably have seen a lot of supervisors that are minorities. People are people. You have to criticize behavior. And that's what's going on here in Somalia. And it's been going on for a long time that even it was a Somali government official that was blowing the whistle on this scam a long time ago, saying, this is a bad reflection on our community. We need to stop this,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what the ramifications are. So, a good Somalian there, but, not enough of them. But Tim Walz and his group can't come to bear. And, I'm getting sidetracked because there's a lot of things here. The mayor of Minneapolis is all over this like targeting issue of Somalians. No, it's a targeting issue of the biggest fraud scheme, welfare fraud scheme in the history of our country.
Yeah.
It's not about the Somalians. They just happen to be doing it. And maybe it is because we've brought them in from a country that has no law, is just like a anarchy. It's
Yeah.
run by terrorists. So maybe we shouldn't bring them here. And maybe it's, the behavior is what we're focusing on. And the Somalian part of it, that's a problem. The way they came here, they're not assimilating. But there's a multitude of issues here. It's not just we're going after black Somalians.
No, no, absolutely not. And just on the bigger issue of immigration, you talked about Somalia. It's a broken state. It is. Again, if you went to the State Department website and looked up, hey, should I go on vacation to Somalia? They say, don't do that. That's very dangerous. Or Haiti, don't do that. You might not come back alive. And, just for those liberals who are so concerned and so compassionate that they want to help people from Somalia, from Haiti, I don't disagree with that. But let's do it through helping them maybe with foreign aid. Maybe, there's different ways that you can help people without bringing them here.
Exactly.
Like, what kind of sense does it make to bring Somalia, again, Haiti, high violence societies, low educational achievement societies? Why would you bring them here? We can help them in many ways, but bringing them into our neighborhood, probably not the best idea. And so the bigger issue, I think, is, with our immigration policy, we need to have an immigration policy that is beneficial to the United States. If you want to help people, that's fine, but bringing them here, maybe not the best idea, and clearly not the best idea, because I'll also tie the Afghan national who lived in Washington State, who came to Washington, D.C., and shot a 20-year-old female a National Guard person, killing her, and a 24-year-old National Guard guy, and I don't know what shape he's in, but you have to be so open-minded that your brain fell out to think it's a good idea to bring people from states where killing, you kill people,
that's how you
that killing is
resolve
acceptable.
disputes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fact that we haven't closed down our border completely, the only exceptions to our border right now, the assimilation is not happening. We have, communities of Afghans and Somalians and other different ethnic groups that are hunkering in together. They're not assimilating. We need to get a handle on that. And closing down our immigration policy right now is a smart policy. So let's find out, let's re-examine these Afghanis. Let's look at this Somalian issue. Let's look at these immigration policies and have a thoughtful conversation on what we need here and who we want to bring here. We want to bring people that want to work, have an education already. We can't be bringing in you import third world people, you become the third world. We can't support all this. And shutting down our immigration with just a few exceptions, businesses that are coming in, because of tariffs, setting up businesses, and they have consultants and things like that to help them set up. Those kind of things make total sense. But we need to get a grip. It's been done before. Let's get a grip. Let's shut it down and only make very few exceptions. Get a handle, deport the people that need to go, and get back control of what's happening in our country. So, Lakins and all these young ladies that have been either murdered or raped or assaulted, human trafficking, child trafficking, all of that. We can get a handle on it, get these people the hell out of here, and get back to a normal policy.
Yeah. And, shutting it down or slowing it down big time, there's some problems with that. Like the way I expect the economy to take off. We're going to need people. However, what the Biden administration did for 4 years is they brought people over here. It didn't matter. And I've heard people say, oh, well, the Biden administration is vetting people from Haiti, vetting people from Somalia, from Syria, from Libya. These are states that don't like vetting somebody from the United States. You can do that. We have computer systems that communicate to each other and all that. But you're talking about countries where they don't have a functioning government. There is no computer system to know what these people have done. So what does vetting really entail in these situations? Like, who are you asking?
Right.
You're asking, I don't know, the leader of an Al-Qaeda chapter in one of these countries. Well, how is this person? Like, who are you asking? There's nobody to ask. And so when Democrats say that these people are vetted, it's a lie. It's a lie that only a fool would believe. And so it makes me angry when I hear a Democratic politician say things like that, because clearly it's impossible to vet these people. But, we definitely have to stop, evaluate who do we have here. I'm sorry, I want to let more people in who are good people, but we can't right now because we have to clean up the mess that took place during the Biden administration.
Amen, Ken. And, it's a lot more fun discussing the issues when I can see your face. And I guess we'll see what our audience thinks about whether or not seeing our faces.
Just don't watch us during dinner time, or at least don't watch me during dinner time.
A couple of old guys from the Bronx, it's like, but we're going to have to get some hands-on politics paraphernalia.
Yeah.
We'll have to, this is my girl Paxi,
nice,
big husky, Great Pyrenees. And, we'll have to get some gear if we're going to continue this. But hey, give us some feedback on the show and what you think of the software, and we'll see how it goes. Ken, it was a lot of fun getting together, and the first show after Thanksgiving. This is episode 75. Wow. And maybe, if this works out and we can add some guests, that would be a lot of fun too. Get back into our guest mode, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I like it. I've enjoyed it. It's much better being able to see your face as I'm talking to you. Much easier than just doing over the phone. So I like this format. Just, we'll see if people can stomach, what we look like.
All right, Ken. So thanks, everyone, for watching episode 75 of Hands On Politics. A couple of brothers just talking about the issues, as you could tell. Now you can see us in our animation and our what do you call these, jazz hands?
Jazz hands, yeah.
All
Tim
right.
Walls, jazz hands, hey.
Yay. All right, Ken. So we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Great talking to you, Rich. Bye.
Bye.